Hey, who's leaving their microphone rig here? You guys doing AM talk radio when I'm not around? Two, three, four, do 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 do. Blee blah blee blee blah blah. Dee 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 la. It's Wednesday. I'm in love. Picks out of the week. Ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. Hi. I have had a very long day. Not as long as everyone, but for me personally, this day began in July of 2017. Okay. So as I was saying before, I had to stop the previous video and check that the mic was working. Uh, haven't been able to get all of my comics out of my bag yet, so I'm still kind of just picking and choosing stuff, which is actually not a bad way to start cutting the fat on a few books that I don't like that much. It's like if I really had to make a choice, I'm gonna leave a lot of this crap. So anyway, but in the meanwhile, okay. First up, I got the other history of the DC universe number four. Four. I've talked about this a few times already. Ridley, Camuncoli, blah blah blah. But the main reason I definitely took this home today is that it features Renee Montoya, who is, since this is the other history of the DC universe, is all the characters of color. And Renee Montoya, former detective Renee Montoya, is Puerto Rican, I want to say, or maybe half Puerto Rican, half black, something like that. She's also one of those lesbians they have now, but I don't think that enters in. Well, I'm sure it'll come up in the story. She started out as just a detective in the Gotham City Police Department, and then she spent some time as the Spectre for a while, which I thought was fun. And then she became the Question for a minute, which is what she's dressed as here. Now, personally, the Question is one of my favorite superheroes. Is one of the first that I ever really got into. Superhero. He's more of a faceless vigilante, as portrayed by Vic Sage. The character is created by Steve Ditko in the late '60s, early '70s. Uh, Vic Sage is his alter ego as an investigative journalist. Also a bit of a right wing prick, but that's not really here nor there. So yeah, but Montoya as that character gained in popularity from the I think especially I think she might have been on the Batman animated series. In fact, that might have been where she was created, like Harley Quinn. That I don't remember. There was a series in the early aughts, early to mid aughts, I want to say, called GCPD, which was just the Gotham City Police Department, and so it was more of a police procedural. It wasn't as no. I think Batman and those characters would pop up, but it was more about the officers. And Montoya became kind of a breakout character from that, as I recall. And then, like I say, she was the Spectre for a minute, and then she became the Question. I don't remember how she became. I think it might have been during DC had a big year-long event called 52, and there was a new issue every week, so there were 52 issues. And it was in, and it was like one of those big, like Crisis on Infinite Earths type reality altering stuff. A lot of stuff happened. And so at some point, I believe Vic Sage dies, and I think he passes the mantle on to her. I guess I'll find out again when I read this because it's been a very long time. And I prefer Vic Sage as the Question, but I thought Renee Montoya as the Question was pretty fun. So I'm looking forward to that. What else this week? I picked up the Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton, which is a new book from the Image Comics group. It was written by Kyle Starks, whose name I do recognize, but I couldn't tell you from what off the top of my head. But they in a few Image books this last month they they ran a preview. Ran a preview. They included like a few pages of this issue in the back of a few Image books. And yeah, it was very interesting. From what I can remember from the preview, Trigger Keaton here was a television star in the '60s and '70s, maybe '80s, and then he's dead. I think murdered, and then his six sidekicks over his career are either suspects and or trying to solve what happened. Because apparently Sugar Keaton was a real bastard. So that's fun. I always like when they do showbiz type stuff like that. And I'm sure I'll remember where I know Kyle Stark's name from before next week. Also, this week, this is kind of a big whoop. Web of Spider Man #1. Um, I'm a big fan of Web of Spider Man. Web of Spider Man was the third solo series that Spider Man got in the 1985, I believe, was the first issue. So the original Spider Man title, which is still running, called The Amazing Spider Man. And then in the 70s, 78, I want to say maybe 77, they introduced Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. So that was a second monthly book. That's how popular he was. And that's my favorite Spider-Man book, because during the 80s when I was a kid was when Sal Buscema was drawing that, and he's my favorite. And then in 85, Web of Spider-Man. And I don't know if this is going to, because they've done a couple mini-series, I think, it's called Web of Spider-Man, or at least a couple series that only ran a few issues. So I don't know if they're planning on making this a longer one. I do get the feeling, this is pure speculation on my part, that a lot of the Spider-Man stuff, because I haven't read Spider-Man on any kind of regular basis since Brand New Day, which was like 2007, I want to say 2008 maybe, and I feel like people are reluctant to dive into it because they feel like there's going to be a lot of continuity, a lot of backstory that they don't know it. Because Nick Spencer's been writing that book for a few years. I think they've just been letting him do whatever he wants. So it's like that thing. I think the X-Men books will do this sometimes too, although not right now, where they go, well, there's the Amazing Spider-Man as the main book, but here's Nonstop Spider-Man, which isn't. You can just pick it up and it's all action-packed. And now they're doing another one called Web of Spider-Man. I don't know what the what the premise is of this book or anything. What I do know is that apparently there is a there's a first appearance in this issue of a character. So okay, so I was in the shop today, and it was just me and Warren. And the phone rang as it often does in there on Wednesday, and I heard him on the phone go, no, sorry, man, I don't have any. Nope, we're all sold out. Nope, I don't have any. Nope, sorry. He had to say it like 4 or 5 times. And having worked in a shop myself, not to brag, I knew exactly what kind of phone call it was, but I didn't know what it was about. So when he hung up, I go, what were they looking for? Because DC did a book recently, a Batman Fortnite crossover, and I roll my eyes at a video game that I don't play, so what do I care? But that became a hot book. So there's apparently a lot of speculators. And I said, why? And he said, because there's a first appearance of a character, which is apparently a character that was only on TV or in the movies. Maybe it's Ned or somebody like that. Well, I don't want to ruin it for myself, but I was going to buy this anyway because I like Web of Spider-Man, even though it's not the same title at all. Also, Alberto Albuquerque is also on art duty for this, and he's very good. His brother Raphael Albuquerque draws a lot. I'm more familiar with his work, but Alberto is very good as well. So, but I have been. I guess I can go on this tangent. This notion of speculation has come up in my own personal life, especially because I've been extremely broke lately. A few months ago, I want to say it was, I went to visit the bulk of my comic book collection in my mother's garage where it chooses to live. And I pulled out my copy of Ultimate Fallout #4, which is the first appearance of Miles Morales or just the first appearance of Miles Morales. I don't know if he becomes Spider-Man in that or not. And it goes on eBay. Last I looked for like $2,500, which I could definitely use that. But as I pulled it out, I looked at it and I went, I can't break up the set. And by that, I mean not only Ultimate Fallout, the miniseries, not only my run of Ultimate Spider-Man, which, although partially in trade, is complete. I'm talking about the set of my comic book collection. Now, a buddy of mine, I tweeted something to this effect, and a buddy of mine messaged me directly. It's a good idea to take your nerd stuff out of the public, but he was encouraging me to sell like stuff like that. That, or he would just wanted to brag that he had a copy of Amazing Spider-Man #1 at some point. And he's not wrong. I mean, it would be easy money, but for one thing, then I have to deal with people, and I quit retail for just that sort of thing. And I'm not a speculator. I'm a funny book collector. I'm a comic book enthusiast. That's my son's inheritance. So when I die, he can put Ultimate Fallout #4 up on eBay, and then he can buy himself a graduation present because I'm sure it'll be a couple weeks. But yeah, it's also it's that sort of thing though. Like when I was talking to my buddy, who's a sweet man, but he's just like really, he really doesn't see why, and I am like, yeah, I don't see why you collect comic books at all. If it's just a if it's a business, fine. If you're a retailer, obviously, but if you're just some guy flipping books on eBay, I don't know. Do something else. Or don't. I don't give a fuck. That's the other thing. Sorry for swearing. But, yeah, it's not. When I was in high school, when I was a sophomore in high school, they killed Superman. And the death of Superman was a huge thing. And I wanted a copy for myself. And I did want two copies if I could. And I don't think I ended up. No, I think I did. I think I had one that I opened and one that I kept sealed. But then I had somehow gotten my hands on a third copy. And this was at a time when that came out. People were paying hundreds of dollars for a brand new issue. The comic book store I went to at the time, which I believe was Amazing Comics on Magnolia Boulevard in El Cajon, California. The owner there, Amazing Al, didn't find him that amazing personally, but Amazing Al was telling me people were like offering him $100 to pull a copy out of like my bag or somebody else, some other regular pull customer's bag. And this is something about comic shop owners. Say what you want about them, but they won't do that to their regular pull customers. It's not good for business, obviously, but yeah. So I ended up with a third copy. I think I had a copy pulled for me at the store, and I also had that was when you used to be able to get a mail subscription from DC and Marvel. So I had that. So I got the folded one, and then I don't know where the hell I got a third. Is that three? Yeah, I don't remember. I had a third copy though, and I got talking to a classmate of mine. So I was a sophomore in high school. Todd Powers. I hope he's doing okay. Have not seen him since the 10-year reunion, and he seemed to be doing great. And we got to talking, and he was like, "Man, I really want to get a copy of that." And I said, "Well, I have one. If you want to." And he goes, "Okay, how much do you want for it?" And I said, $5. I didn't know. I was like, I had paid cover price, which I think was 2 or 3. And he was a friend of mine. I wasn't looking to rook him. I thought he wanted a copy. So he agreed to $5. I took it to him, and we made the drop, and he laughed in my face. I ripped you off. And I went, okay. Well, this is kind of how the Native Americans felt when they sold Manhattan. And you can't buy something like the death of Superman because it will be rendered null and void within months. And of course it was. And then, fast forward 20, 30 years later, and I'm working on, how long? Yeah, about 20 years later, 25 years later, I'm working at a funny book store. And I have a long box of those Death of Superman, all sealed. The Overstreet, I remember looking it up in the Overstreet guide in 06. No, it was like 07, 08. $13. That comic was worth. So yeah. Todd Powers, you won that $8 off me. And that's what I mean. That's the sort of speculative bullshit that you have to go through. Yes, I could sell that Miles Morales, one and done. I'm out. I never have to sell another comic again if I don't want. Or you could pound it up your butt because it's my funny book. I did try when there was a comic book called Outcast that was written by Robert Kirkman, which came out in 2013, I want to say. And I'm not a huge fan of Robert Kirkman's work. I don't hate it, but I don't go out of my way for it. And but here I am working at this funny book store. I know this book is going to it's going to increase in value because this is when, Walking Dead was still super hot. And of course, the speculation now is always what TV show or movie is going to get made next. So when it was a Robert Kirkman property, people were like, "Well, this probably already optioned." Which I'm sure. I think it ended up being a TV show on Cinemax. So I bought that first issue, first pressing, and it sat in my room for a few months, and then I sold it on Amazon or something like that for $10 because that's what it was going for. And honestly, I just wanted it out of my way. It was just taking up space. I've got so much stuff taking up space. So if I had held on to it for another few months, or maybe another couple of years when the TV show was announced, but then I have to read Entertainment Weekly and Hollywood Report and all this shit. Fuck it. I'd rather just not. Yeah, this picks up the way. And all right, I'm gonna try and make. I had to go on a speculator rant. All right, so last week, what did I read? Okay, yeah, well here we go. All right, first up, this was super duper fun. War of the Bounty Hunters #1, featuring my favorite Star Wars character, or one of them anyway, Mr. Boba Fett. So in this storyline, which takes place between, I think pretty much all the Marvel Star Wars stuff at this point is taking place between Empire and Jedi, which is right. That's right in my wheelhouse. That's my favorite era. So Han Solo's been frozen in carbonite. He's been given to Boba Fett. But what we don't see before Jedi is that Boba Fett or Han Solo gets stolen from Boba Fett. So now Boba Fett is hot on whoever stole it from him's trail. Jabba the Hutt has now put out a bounty on Boba Fett because he thinks he's getting screwed. So now it's Boba Fett versus all the other bounty hunters in the galaxy. Sign me up. That's all I give a poop about. I love the Boba Fett so much. He was one of my favorite characters growing up. And it was I mean, I'm far from the only one, but I think in my case it was just that he was really quiet. He didn't talk very much. Which I'm realizing, despite how much I go on these things, I really appreciate a man of few words. So, so that was fun. I also read this one, Out of Body #1, written by Peter Milligan and drawn by Inaki Miranda, whose name I'm not familiar with. Very, very good art indeed. This is pretty good, but I had to open it to remind myself what happened. So yeah, in this story, our main character protagonist is in a coma, and he's narrating it, but he has no idea how he got into this coma. And so as you know, people come in and visit, and then also he's being contacted by a nice lady medium who's trying to help him, and by an evil guy. So we'll see how that. It's, to be honest with you, it's not kicking my ass. But right now, everything else is kicking my ass, so I feel like I don't have a whole lot of this move and work and everything else. This was super duper fun. This, I'm really looking forward to more of this stuff. Milestone Returns Infinite Edition 0. So as I mentioned last week, we had like hardware with Static Shock. I forgot all about Icon. Icon is the Black Superman, not to be confused with Chuck D of Public Enemy, as evidence on the Revolve Revolution album of 2005. Icon is an alien who came to Earth and has superpowers, and he's using them to help others. And then we also have his sidekick Rocket, who I don't really remember very well from the original books. And then I think Blood Syndicate comes into it towards the end. But yeah, they brought back all the heavy hitters. Cohen Sienkiewicz draws some of this stuff. Yeah. It was really good. And it also really brought me back. It didn't bring me back as much as reading that hardware thing. Like that hardware trade I read earlier this year or late last year. And it was like, oh, right. And then reading the hardware stuff in here, I was like, oh, yeah, okay. But when it's reading like the icon stuff, I'm like, oh, I don't remember this character at all. And I know I read at least the first the first arc of each one of these books back in the 90s, but yeah, they did not sink in at all, which is a shame. So yeah, this will be. I mean, there's really not. What is the? So I mean, the overall, it's like they're kind of updating these characters for the 21st century, but I can tell you, like they go over hardware's origin very kind of quickly and simply. And so I don't know that the original, because the original origin is that it's kind of an Iron Man thing. except without having being in a cave. The 14-year-old genius, he goes to work for this major, you know, technology company. This other super genius guy becomes like his mentor, and then he finds out that his mentor is in fact uh, the crime boss of the town, which I don't even remember what the town is now. And yeah, so they kind of gloss over that a little bit because it's pretty silly, but they're trying to update it, I guess. But yeah, it's fun. I'm not putting in a whole lot of. I don't. I just don't want you guys doing any kind of Rush Limbaugh stuff in here. Okay, that's it for today.